Hello, and welcome to the Thursday, November 7th meeting of TV Toastmasters. I'd like to welcome our guests in the studio audience as well as those looking in at home. TV Toastmasters meets the first Thursday of the month at 6 p.m. and the third Saturday of the month at 9 a.m. And we invite you to come check us out. We meet at 7850 5 Mile Road in an Anderson Community Television studio. To find out more about us, you can log on to www.tvtoastmasters.com. We have an exciting meeting in store for you today, and now I'd like to turn it over to our Toastmaster for the evening, Miss Sheila Mudd Baker.
We have a lively evening tonight. We have 3 speakers, 3 evaluators, table topics, a great evening. For those of you who are out there at home watching us saying, it's Thursday night, I wish I had something more interesting to do. On the first Thursday of every month, you could be coming right here to the Anderson Community Television Station, and you could be part of this Toastmasters meeting, even if it's just being in the audience. It's a little more exciting being in the audience than to be home and watching. Our first person to give a report, not a report, but a challenge to the audience, all of us, is our Word of the Day Master, Carol Cormelink.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our most welcome guest. If you will look on your agenda, you will see that the word of the day is squander. I will not squander your time, that is to waste in a reckless and foolish manner. You will be glad you came tonight. The challenge is to use squander when you come up to the lectern and speak. And also, I will be counting all your killer filler words, the you-knows, the ands. Instead of using periods, we use ands, so's, uhs, ums, and I will be checking on all of those double clutches where you start a sentence and restart it, and I will report at the end. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Carol. I squandered my opportunity to look professional and primped my hair in front of the camera. So please forgive me for that. Besides the word of the day, Carol is also in charge of table topics. And for those of you who don't know what table topics are, Carol will tell you what the rules are for the timing, and we'll call on people here in the studio audience to answer. Carol Cormelink.
Thank you. Table topics is the opportunity to learn how to speak to answer an unexpected question. When I didn't know the question you were going to ask me, before I learned how to do table topics, I had brain freeze. I couldn't think of anything to say. After I learned table topics, I now know several ways to answer a question. One of the ways you probably wouldn't want to do with your boss is create a fantasy. But there are ways to answer crazy questions that you didn't know you were going to be asked. I will call on a Toastmaster first, and then I will call on the guest so that they will be able to learn the skill of thinking when you're asked an unexpected question. You will have from 1 to 2 minutes to have your reply. Michelle, with her timer, will show you the green light when you get to 1 minute, the yellow light at 1.5 minutes, and the red light at 2 minutes. And anytime, and if you can only, some people can only say something for 15 seconds and they're finished. That's okay too for your first time. This is a learning opportunity. My first question is, what part of the newspaper do you read first? Peter Ruhlman.
Well, thank you, Madam Table Topics Master and fellow guests. Do I read the newspaper at all is the question. The Cincinnati Enquirer has deteriorated to a little pitiful thing, and to be honest with you, my wife reads it, but I rarely look at it. When I do read it, I try to be logical. I start on the front page, and I usually kind of scan through and look for articles of interest. I try to read everything. I try to be complete, look at the main stories, the international stories, a little bit on the sports. I'm not a big sports fan, but I like to know a little bit about what's going on with the Bengals and the Reds and the Boston Red Sox, where my daughter goes to school, and just enough to be conversant. And I do look at the editorials. I like to know what people in Cincinnati are thinking, and a little bit about local politics. We just had a big election here, got a new mayor, and I think we're all interested to see how Mr. Cranley will do. So yes, I do read the newspaper, but to be honest, I mostly read things online, and I'm very compulsive about that.
Very good.
Thank you for the opportunity. I hope I didn't squander it.
You did not squander your time. My next question is, what is the most interesting accomplishment you have, what's the most interesting thing that you have accomplished with your left hand? Gary, how about you go up and...
Well, I would happen to say the most interesting thing I've done with my left hand, and we actually were just talking about this today in a couple emails, was I learned actually how to play ping pong with my left hand. And the only reason I learned how to play ping pong with my left hand is because I couldn't really play right-handed, so I thought I can't be any worse, so let me try left-handed. So actually now I can actually play both left-handed and right-handed ping pong. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My third and last question is, if you could wear only one color all year, what would it be and why? Susan.
Thank you. That's a tough question. I actually started out liking just one color and wearing that pretty much all of the time, and that was red. But over time, I've learned to embrace a lot of different colors, mostly jewel tones, and it depends on the mood that I'm in on a given day. But I really do enjoy wearing a variety of colors and seeing how it, particularly if I'm having a day when I'm feeling really tired, I'll wear a really nice bright color, and it will lift my mood and make me feel more energized and help me move through my day and be effective. Oh, I forgot to say the word squander.
Thank you very much. One of the things I would like to point out about lectern protocol is that you'll notice when someone came from this side, I exited to the other side, and when they came from this side, I exited to the other side so that I did not cross in front or behind them. And then we do exchange control of the lectern with a handshake. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you. And another piece of protocol for television, which I don't think we always do, is we never clap with papers in our hands because it makes a terrible noise. We have 3 speakers tonight, as I indicated earlier, and our first speaker is Jennifer Lovell. And Jennifer is giving her icebreaker tonight. And this is exciting for anybody who is here, as well as anyone who's in the audience, because this is her first speech before this group, and probably her first speech on television doing a Toastmasters speech. And her speech is, don't talk about it, be about it. And we are going to learn a lot about Jennifer. At least that's the whole point of this speech. So Jennifer Lovell. And we will cross.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Lovell, and I am a procrastinator. This is my first speech in Toastmasters, and given that the speech was about me, I thought that this was going to be much easier, but it was not. Among other things in my life, procrastination, I find it trumps all. It's one of the things that I've always, from the time I can remember to even to this day, this moment, I still struggle with. And I wanted to introduce myself in such a manner as I did to find a word to just tie it all together, like this is me. So this evening I want to take time and I want to share with you just a glimpse of my life and my experiences and my family and my career and why I'm here at Toastmasters. So, growing up, I had a normal life. Growing up, I had a normal life, challenging a lot, but in my eyes, it was normal. Came from a middle-class family home. I had a brother and a sister. My brother was 4 years behind me. His name was Alex, and then my sister was 4 years behind him. So, and her name's Madison. Grew up with my mom and dad. Actually, let me take that back. I grew up with my dad and my mom. And I say that because my mom left me and my dad when I was an infant. So his name is Joe. He raised me. Met Annie, my mom, when I was 2, and then they married when I was 4. So life was always busy. Coming and going, sports, I didn't know who was coming and where we were going, or it was very chaotic. But maybe that's a part of how I've become how I am. But in high school, I was always the last one in the door, late for school or showing up late to soccer practice, the one who waits until the night before to crunch a paper together that I've had weeks to work on, which, giving a good example, is this speech. I have had 4 weeks to work on this speech. And 2 nights ago, I thought to myself, well, I guess it's time. Time to start putting something together. So, that's me. Even as an adult and a mother of 2, I found that life's challenges with, being a procrastinator, it's affecting me more now than ever. As a single mom, it's very difficult. I have a son who's 8, and my daughter, she just turned 5. Actually, 2 weeks ago, my son came home with his first grade report, and he had straight A's, and I was so excited because it was a fairly rough year. 3rd grade, that transition, multiple teachers, it was a whole new world for him, and it was a rough start. And I was so proud of him when he came home and he had straight A's. But then one number stuck out to me like a sore thumb. Times tardy. 9. And I thought to myself, it's time for change. And I get a little emotional. So, because change is not easy. Especially not for me, it's not easy. So, I've been at AAA as an insurance agent for going on 7 years now. That's all I know. I love it. I know I'm good at it. I couldn't imagine leaving. I couldn't imagine making that change. It actually gives me anxiety thinking about it. But what I do know is that if I don't start addressing the things in my life that need change, nothing's going to happen. Things are going to stay the same. So, it's time in my life. It's time for me to take control. Because if nobody's going to take control but me, and I know that in my career, I'm never going to be able to advance. I'm not going to be able to work my way to the top. There are just certain areas of my life, that being one of them, that holds me back from being successful. And that's what I want. I want to be successful. I want to get better. And about standing up here and just talking about myself and not feeling so overwhelmed that I want to cry. Because that's me. And I want to conquer that. And someone once told me, don't talk about it, be about it. And they were right. It's time for me to take control of my own life and start making change. It's time for me to decide what's important and what I want for my future and my kids' future, because I want them to be able to look at me and be like,
she did it. I can do it. My mom's amazing. She worked through her struggles and she conquered her battles. I mean, going on 30 years now, and I know what I want, and that's change. Martin Luther King once said, you don't have to see the whole staircase. You just got to take that first step. So here I am, taking my first step. And I want to be able to look back after I complete Project 10 and say with confidence, my name is Jennifer Lovell, and I am not a procrastinator. Thank you.
Jennifer, John Boehner cries, and he's highly successful in his job. And for those of you who might not know who he is, look him up. And Steve is using his first manual, the Competent Communicator Manual, his very last speech in the 10 speeches for the Competent Communicator. And the name of his speech is Union Township Police Department Citizens Police Academy Graduation. All one heck of a title and one heck of a speech, I bet. Steve Aaronholtz.
I think I need to give you a little bit of background on my speech tonight. This is an address that I presented a year ago this month as a part of the Union Township Police Department's Citizen Police Academy. This is a program they run every year, and it's an opportunity for citizens in the township to learn about the services and the variety of activities that the police department provides to us 24/7. And my speech is going to include feedback that I got from my classmates, and it's an overall presentation to the class. Education is learning what you didn't even know you didn't know. That's a quote from Daniel Borstein. Police Chief Zinser, Sergeant Reese, men and women of the Union Township Police Department who gave of their time to teach the Union Township Police Academy, family and friends. Here we are, commemorating the conclusion of another successful Citizens Police Academy. Sergeant Reese told us during our first class that it would go quickly, and it has. My role here tonight is to share with you some of the observations and thoughts from the Citizens Police Academy participants. I will cover a few of the things that we learned, some of the experiences that we had, and how our perceptions have changed. What did we learn? A lot sums it up, but I think a few examples might be helpful. We gained insight into what our township police have to deal with on a daily basis, explained to us firsthand by the officers who serve our community. We got to see what it's like to test our decision-making skills while walking in an officer's shoes, and that an officer may not have a second chance. We had the opportunity to learn how officers do their work, as well as the insight into why they work the way they do. We've seen how thorough, varied, and deliberate the work of our police force is in the services that they provide to us every day. We acquired an increased appreciation for what it takes to do the jobs of police officer, sergeant, agent, interrogator, forensics, and dispatcher. The class on interrogation taught us, to quote Margaret Mead, what people say, what people do, and what people say they do are entirely different things. Our officers often have to deal with people and situations that are not pleasant and don't present people at their best. As a part of our learning process, we were able to experience for ourselves what it takes to carry out some of the tasks that may confront our officers at any time. Some of our experiences were experiencing situations that an officer may face using the department's Firearms Training Simulator, or FATS system as it's referred to. The FATS provided us with an opportunity to walk through a scenario where we had to make decisions about a potential threat and then respond accordingly. I think a number of us were quite surprised at how we responded when the simulator played out a scenario and it required a response from us in order to proceed. It's very interactive. It was entertaining, but the message was also clear that there may not be a lot of time, and the cues of an increasingly grave threat may be very subtle. Another experience was observing how a traffic stop can quickly become non-routine, how officers must act to protect themselves and others. Police work is also about teamwork and how important it is to have someone watching your back. The nuances of doing a driving under the influence assessment and the science that backs it up. And those fatal vision goggles were certainly an experience. For those of you who may not be familiar with them, they're goggles that you can put on and they change your vision, they change your perception, and it's actually quite disorienting, but it has the effect of making you function as far as how you walk and things as if you were drunk. So it's quite something. I'd never encountered that before. Target practice at the firing range reinforced the point that if you have a larger target, you're more likely to hit it. At least a couple of us did have some apprehension about going to the firing range. One of our classmates was quite concerned that she might hurt herself or someone else, but one of the officers convinced her to go, and at the firing range, Sergeant Williams calmed her and helped her focus. Even though he may not have known why, she grabbed him and gave him a big hug when it was her turn to shoot, and she successfully was able to shoot the firearm. It was a big deal for her to conquer her fear and not give up. And I have to second the patience and people skills of the officers that we worked with at the firing range. Having never fired a handgun myself, Sergeant Mills was great at reviewing with me what I needed to do, how to hold the gun, aim it, and truthfully, I found it really does get tiring if you hold the stance too long trying to line everything up perfectly in the sight of the gun so that you hit what you think is going to be the center of the target. You don't have that kind of time. Defensive tactics provided some simple maneuvers that surprised a number of us, reinforced the message that we need to think about what to do, and that brawn often isn't what is needed to break free when someone has a hold on you. Touring the Claremont County Jail and the courts, learning of the challenges that they face daily and the frustrations that this often brings. And then the ride along. That was an excellent opportunity for us to get to see the officers with whom we had had some of our classes, reinforcing different points that had been made in our classroom sessions. The officers with whom we did our ride-alongs did an excellent job of explaining their approaches to situations and answering numerous questions that we'd have. So, what has changed as far as our perceptions? Some thoughts that some of my classmates shared with me, that you shared with me. The class was enjoyable and presented us with an experience of a lifetime. We gained additional insight into what the Union Township Police have to deal with on a daily basis. That there is a fair amount of crime in our community that we weren't even aware of. Training to shoot to stop a threat is a serious matter. The Academy also provided greater understanding of the job and objectives of our police department. The officers we met take seriously their job to protect and serve our community. A quote by Jean-Paul Sartre that summarizes this is, "Commitment is an act, not a word." I have a new appreciation for the officers and what they do every day. I don't put them in the superhero category, but in the category of those who take their job seriously and will be the hero of the day when the need arises. Union Township is not exempt from the crime problems occurring in our big neighbor next door, our metropolitan neighbor next door. That if we see something that looks wrong or suspicious, we can help by reporting the situation and providing as much information as we have. It has been a privilege to participate in the Union Township Citizens Police Academy, and this is something that we'll recommend friends and family members participate in. That I care about the police officers because I know them as people. They're citizens of the community with families and friends. Some share similar interests and even common friends. They may have grown up in the community or not, but they still care about it. They're no longer the guy or gal behind the wheel of the cruiser. They're people that I know and care about. They're real people just like you and me, doing a very hard job, getting their shoes muddy, fighting the elements, and keeping us safe in our community. And when I see them out on the streets, driving quickly toward a crime, or responding to a call for assistance, I worry about them as if they are my own, because they are. I have two quotes that I'd like to leave you with. One that I think honors the men and women of the Union Township Police Department, and one which describes the experience of the participants in the Union Township Citizens Police Academy. First, for the officers of the Union Township Police Department. Maya Angelou stated, "Courage is the most important of all the virtues, because without courage you can't practice any other virtues consistently. You can practice any virtue erratically, but nothing consistently without courage." For those of us who participated in this Citizens Police Academy, Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. stated, "A mind that is stretched by a new experience can never go back to the old dimension." Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Steve. And I apologize to Steve for neglecting my duty in setting up his speech. And I've just checked his time, and he was exactly 10 minutes. Our next speaker is Michelle Lewis. And Michelle will be speaking from the Communicating on Television manual in speech number 5, Training on Television. This is a 5 to 7 minute speech in which we actually have her evaluator go into the control room and watch the video instead of watching Michelle so that he can do his evaluation. And Michelle's speech title is 5 Steps to Preparing and Presenting an Effective Speech. Please welcome Michelle Lewis, a competent communicator and a competent leader currently working towards her Advanced Competent Communicator Bronze Award.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Good evening. Have you ever been to a presentation or a talk, and as soon as it was over, you realized you couldn't remember a thing that was just said? My name is Michelle Lewis, and I'm here today to share with you 5 simple yet effective steps to make sure your speech is not the one forgotten. It's as simple as knowing your audience, knowing your venue, preparing a solid outline, practicing, and delivering it with enthusiasm. So let's dive a little bit deeper into each one of these steps. Knowing your audience. This is important because if you're presenting to a group of executives, a room full of scientists, or a classroom full of 5th graders, how you deliver your message is going to be different. I can't use technical terms with the executive that I would use with the scientists, and I can't use the humor I would use with the fifth graders, with the executives. So it's very critical for me to understand who I'm presenting to. Also important to know why they're there. Are they there to be informed? Are they there to be entertained? I need to make sure my message is relevant for the audience there. Second, the venue. This is one we often forget. But think about it. Am I going to be presenting in a small little conference room or a large auditorium? How will the lighting be? Will there be a microphone? Will I be inside? Will I be outside? These are all things we need to keep in mind when preparing our speech to make sure it's as effective as possible. For instance, tonight I knew I'd be up on the stage behind the lectern presenting on camera. If I had intended to walk around the room and through the audience, it wouldn't have been very effective for those looking in at home. So now that I know my audience and I know my venue, it's time to prepare the outline. But first you have to pick a topic. This is always a challenge, but the best advice I've been given was make sure it's a topic that either you're an expert in, that you're very interested in, or it's something you want to be an advocate for. Make sure it's a topic that's relevant to you and also relevant for your audience. Then as you begin to write the outline, there's three key components. There's the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. With the introduction, this is your opportunity to capture the attention of the audience. Bring them in, make them want to listen more. You can use a quote, you can use a startling statistic, you can ask a question like I did when I started mine this evening. And then you need to use the introduction as your opportunity to summarize what you're going to discuss. Then you move into the body of the speech. And this is where you take the content, you use story, you use relevance to tell what you promised you were going to in the introduction. Usually for a short speech, a 5 to 7 minute speech, three key points is good. And make sure you deliver on what you told them you were going to tell them. Finally, the conclusion. It's an opportunity to reiterate what you were going to tell them, and then also close with a bang. You could use another quote, you could use a call to action, but make sure when they're leaving that speech today or that room, they're going to continue to think about what you just told them. So now that we've done all of our preparation, knowing our audience, our venue, and our outline, it's time to practice. Practice, practice, and practice. You can do it in the mirror. You can do it in the shower. You can do it for your neighbors, your family. Just make sure you feel comfortable, because the more you practice, the more comfortable you feel, the more confident you are when you get in front of the audience. And finally, deliver with enthusiasm. I could have the most exciting topic, the most well-written speech, but if I come up here and I deliver it like this, you're not going to want to listen anymore. So it's very important that you deliver your speech with enthusiasm. So there you have it. Pretty simple. Know your audience, know your venue, prepare a solid outline, practice, and deliver with enthusiasm, and I can assure you, your speech won't be the one forgotten. Thank you.
We're going to take a brief break for a public service announcement about Toastmasters, and then we'll be right back.
Name an effective political leader in history who couldn't speak well. There aren't any.
Because when it comes to a disease,
Freedom requires leadership, and leadership requires oratory. You have to speak to be heard.
I have a dream.
It's all about personal growth and guts.
Never give in. Never, never, never.
And now we will have the third part of our program, the evaluations of the speeches. And the evaluations themselves are little mini speeches. They are an opportunity for the evaluators to listen to a speech, write another speech, and give a speech in about half the time of the original speaker. So it's always an interesting thing to see what people see and hear when someone else speaks. Our first evaluator is me. I am evaluating our new Toastmaster, Jennifer Lovell, and Jennifer was giving her icebreaker. Now, for those of you who are unaware of what an icebreaker is, it's just like going to a cocktail party where people ask, so tell me all about yourself. And that's what Jennifer did. Jennifer gave us a lot more detail than you would in small talk. But what she did was show us that she can speak in public and she can speak well, that she looks good on camera, and she probably looks very good in real life too. Her point in giving this speech is for all of us here and those out in the audience at home to know who Jennifer is. What makes Jennifer tick? What makes Jennifer different from everybody else in the room? And what makes her similar to whoever is listening to her? One of the things that Jennifer did was use her hands very, very well. She used her hands to express herself, but she didn't go way out here so she was lost or way up here. She used it in a reasonable way so that the people in the camera and the people in this relatively small room could see her well. She was quite capable of giving a coherent speech, which some of us don't do as well as others. And that's a very important way to start, is to be able to give a speech with a beginning, a middle, and an end, and a theme. And Jennifer was able to do all of that. And she had a good show of emotion. Now you think, well, so how many of you would get in front of a camera and be willing to show emotion? Very few of us, because we're scared to death. She's not half as scared as the rest of us. She has real courage. Steve talked about Maya Angelou talking about courage. There is nothing like courage, and Jennifer definitely had it. I think in general, Jennifer did very, very well. And in fact, for her first speech, she did fabulously well. If there was anything that I would give to Jennifer, it is to look up more at the camera, because whatever camera is on, and there's always a little red light, that's the audience at home, and they want to see you. You can look at everybody else, but you can't look up, you can't look down, even though I've already done it. We'll pretend I didn't do that. The important thing is for the audience at home to see us, and you can also talk to everybody else here, because we can see on the camera that's what you're doing. All in all, Jennifer, wonderful job. I can't wait to hear the next one. And I'd shake my hand at this point, because I'm supposed to hand over to the Toastmaster, but the Toastmaster is me. So fortunately for all of us, we have another face and another voice. And Diego is going to evaluate, Diego is going to evaluate Steve. And Steve, as you recall, gave the speech about the Union Township Police Department's Police Academy. And let us welcome Diego.
Thank you, Sheila. Good evening. Well, I have a very, very hard task. Is evaluating one of the person who is the most evaluated person in the audience. So I will try my best, even though it's a challenge, but there's always room for improvement. The first thing that I would like to appreciate it with your speech was, the title was Inspiring Your Audience. Pretty much when we are encouraging people in the public, it was very good to see there are other people who are helping us to live better. And your topic was completely very go to the heart. So that's how I see it. It was relevant, yes. There's always opportunity that there is changes that the police are making for us, and there's people who have that courage. I really understand that all the feeling, how you express, it was something that was very emotional from you, and you want to kind of transpose to the audience in order to get the same impact that was for you. One of the things that the confident and the positive thing, always, Steve, you have that kind of posture that you can bring the people, and you are with the group, and you are with me, and I am with you. So I see that was very, very well done, addressed. Other thing that when you talk about stories and quotes, I like the quote from education. That was perfect because everybody in this audience, we are educating ourselves and we're educating others. So it comes very kind of very appropriate. One thing that the courage from Michelangelo, you call Michelangelo, I call Michelangelo, but it was very good too because courage is what we need to get to other people as well, to be in one position that you don't having to evaluate one person. Well, I have the courage to come here and try to do it. Other thing that he said about the speaker, the body language, I think the hands is something that have to go with the talking as well. And I noticed that sometimes the hands kind of stop, but maybe kind of continue because you can continue the conversation. And if you're talking about hugging the people, you were doing like hugging like this. So I think like maybe hugging will like this. So some just minimum things, and the holding. What could be the thing that you will be more effective? Well, it's kind of hard for me, but I said we will continue hearing your inspiration and your speeches because they really, really are good to the audience. And you really encourage the people, so I appreciate it to give me the opportunity to evaluate. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Our third evaluator is evaluating Michelle Lewis, and that is Peter Ruhlman. Will you please welcome Peter?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. Well, as usual, it's an honor to evaluate Michelle. The title of her speech was 5 Steps to Preparing and Presenting an Effective Speech, and she did not squander the opportunity to do so. This is a unique speech. I'm evaluating her for training on television, so I have sat, as you know, in the back and watched her performance as if I was in the studio audience watching her on camera. It's a little bit different than we usually do. The comments in the manual, it says the speaker is to present a training program on how to prepare and present a speech. The presentation will be videotaped and played back during the meeting, which we're obviously not going to do. Under the direction of the general evaluator, we'll evaluate only the videotape playback. You'll evaluate the effectiveness of the training program and the speaker's performance on videotape. So that's sort of where we're at in this. First question they ask the evaluator is what were the objectives of the training program and how effectively did the speaker fulfill the objectives? In the manual it says the objectives are, number 1, to learn how to develop and present an effective training program on television, and 2, to receive personal feedback through the videotaping of your presentation. Obviously, Michelle did a great job. I thought it was very well organized, and obviously it met the needs of this group. One of the questions they asked of me, did it meet the needs of the audience? One thing we all have in common here is we're all here to learn how to deliver effective speeches, so obviously it's very pertinent to this particular group. Was it organized clearly and logically? She told us what she was going to tell us, she told us, and then she told us what she told us. And so I like that outline, and I could follow the outline. There were 5 points. She used her fingers, all the way through, and did 5 things, and I was able to write them down. And personally, I got a lot out of this in terms of my own future in giving speeches. Comment on the speaker's voice, gestures, and facial expressions. Michelle is always an enthusiastic speaker. I think she is certainly appropriate. As I said, it was logical. Her voice, in terms of modulation, moderation, was good. I noticed she's able to speak with pauses sometimes. Sometimes it's hard. Most of us want to speak too fast and get it over with, but she spoke sometimes was able to pause and just emphasize some of her points. Yes, she appeared to be relaxed, confident, and poised. Michelle makes speaking effortless, looks effortless. I don't know how she does it, but she's an accomplished speaker. How well did she relate to the television camera? I thought excellent. If I was going to hire her for NBC News, I would be right there to support her. And finally, what, if any, distracting mannerisms did the speaker display? The only thing I noticed with Michelle, she's got a little thing with her hair. She swings it back, but just right at the beginning, and I didn't see it after that. So all in all, Michelle, a great speech. I learned a lot, and thank you for delivering it.
I had the same thing. At this time, we have a couple of reports. The first one is from our Word of the Day person, and awe counter, in case you're wondering what awes would be. Carol will tell you. And she's also our grammarian. Please welcome Carol Cormalik.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. I had a fairly easy job tonight, even though we did have a new speaker. Don't feel bad. You were the queen of the ahs and the ums and the so's, and some diction with ta instead of to, some double clutches where you had too fine. I didn't know some of those different things, but I think you did very well. And I have to point out with Diego, his first icebreaker, he had 35 ums and ahs, and he had a few more tonight than he normally has been, but he's gone through the manual, and it's amazing how he has cleared up his ums and his ahs. With the word of the day, Sheila used it as a Toastmaster. I don't see if you used it again. I see that Michelle used the word of the day. Oh, evaluator, sorry. It was Peter that used the word of the day. And Peter, I only heard one lip smack. You did very well. I can't read my notes here, so I don't know. It's a little too crowded. I don't know who did what here. I think that, yeah, it was Diego that had the uhs and the ums. Steve, I didn't hear any grammatical errors from you. I did hear one lip smack, a double clutch where you said must act, must work. You started to say must act, and then you changed it to must work. You had three of them. Then you said at least, and shared, you shared. Very good. And I did hear so, and a big sigh. So, and a little small sigh. But I think I'd rather, because a sigh is not as noticeable as an or an ah. And I read that there is a difference between saying and saying ah. Ah means you're at a loss for words. Is a little longer because you're searching for the word in your mind. I thought it was very clever that they had timed those and found that there was a difference between and ah. Michelle, you did say, so there you have it. You have a great smile. That always makes it very easy. Something it was Diego. Did he already leave? No. Oh, well, Diego, you're on the camera. Okay. So you hear about making your noun and verb agree in singular and plural, and you said hands is, where hands are plural, so it should have been hands are, the plural verb. But you did a lot better, and he slurs sometimes the word kinda instead of kind of. You actually said kind of, and the second time you did say kinda. But you actually did improve from last night at least one time. So that is great that you learned from the things that the killer filler words that add nothing to the speech and distract people, that they start counting your ums and ahs. And I said that Toastmasters is ruining my life because now any place I go, I count the ahs and ums. I went to my sister, donated her body to science, and I started counting ums and ahs. They're going, did you count everyone's unalls? I go, well, it began to be noticeable, yeah, when they got 35 unalls. So. Madam General Evaluator.
I feel a need to say, But a greater need would be to hear our timing report, in which Michelle will tell us how many minutes the individual speakers had and how many minutes they actually used. Michelle Lewis.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. For the word of the day, it's a 2 to 3 minute segment. Carol, you took 46 seconds. For our table topics, it's anywhere between 1 and 2 minutes. Peter, you were at 58 seconds, so you were just there. Gary, you were at 36 seconds. And Susan, you were at 38. So a little short, but all in all, you got your message across. As for our speakers, Jennifer, with her icebreaker, had a 4 to 6 minute speech, and you actually were at 6 minutes and 30 seconds. But that's good, because usually it's hard to fill time up, so you obviously have no problem with that. Steve, you were 8 to 10 minutes, and you rolled in at 10:55. And myself, I had a 5 to 7, and I came in at 5 minutes and 24 seconds. For the evaluations, it's a time of 2 to 3 minutes. Sheila, you came in at 2 minutes and 59 seconds. Diego, 2 minutes and 58. And Peter, 2 minutes and 53. So we all did fantastic on our evaluations. And Carol, as grammarian, you took 3 minutes and 57 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Well, Michelle got to sit down just in time to stand up again, because we are finished for this part of the meeting, but I would like to bring up Michelle Lewis, who will... No, I won't bring up Michelle Lewis. I'm going to stop right here. Thank you very much. As the evaluator, the general evaluator for the meeting, I should say, that we started pretty much on time, considering that we spent part of our time for the meeting setting up, and it was pretty well set up when we came in. And we've stayed on time this evening, and we're doing very well. And in general, for a Thursday night meeting, I think we're doing quite well, and we're going to be done in record time for ACT, who normally makes us edit down because we've talked entirely too much. This time, we're finishing just in time. So now I would like to return control of this meeting. One more time, because I'm editing this, I can do this. I'd like to Take three. I would like to return control of the meeting to our presiding officer, Michelle Lewis.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator, Madam Toastmaster, Director, and every other hat you wore tonight, Sheila. So before we conclude, sorry, I said so. Before we conclude this meeting, I do want to point out that Jennifer did give her icebreaker speech, so we'd like to commend you with a ribbon. The icebreaker is always the absolute hardest speech to give. So you've done it behind you, and now you've got 9 more to go in this manual. So congratulations on that. I also wanted to mention we had 2 guests in our studio audience. We had Gary Beatty and Susan Russell. So thank you guys for joining us. Would either one of you like to come up and give a few words, maybe a few thoughts about the meeting? Gary, come on.
Thank you. Well, I'd just like to say thanks for having me here tonight. Toastmasters always makes me feel welcome and comfortable, and I'm just kind of looking forward to finding that right group to join. And everybody's great. I love Toastmasters, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Susan, would you like to come up?
Thank you. I just wanted to say what a wonderful opportunity it was to be here tonight. I enjoyed listening to the speeches. I'm really interested in becoming a more effective communicator. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of your group.
Susan and Gary, you are always welcome to join us, and especially those looking in at home, you also are welcome to join us. We meet on the first Thursday of the month at 6 p.m., the third Saturday of the month at 9 a.m. at the Anderson Community Television Studio, 3855 Mile Road. Log on to, what is it? 7850, I'm sorry. 7850 5 Mile Road. But please log on to www.toastmasters.com to find out more details. And this concludes our Thursday, November 7th meeting of TV Toastmasters.